Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the channel. I am here with a very special guest, Mike Bosworth, the CEO and founder of NorthWind. Mike, thank you for being here.
Well, thanks for having us. We're really looking forward to chatting with you and getting to talk about one of our favorite topics of Palantir and the whole AI world.
So you came on my radar when I saw you present at AAPCon. It was an incredible presentation, and a lot of people ended up seeing how a company that's not the biggest company in the world is still getting value from Palantir software. And quite frankly, for people that have been covering Palantir, we want to see the company start to work with a whole host of companies, whether they're big, small, medium size, in order to have their software be as transformational as they say it is across the entire spectrum. So I think let's get started with this first question. For those that don't know, what is NorthWind? What do you guys do? And then we'll get into the relationship with Palantir.
So NorthWind is a controls integration company. Our primary business is to design, build, and program industrial automation systems. So we are in a number of different markets. I think I mentioned this in our presentation, but take, for example, pet food. We're in many of the top tier pet food companies where they're actually manufacturing the products. So what our job would be is to go in and do all the software around running the equipment. So if there's a motor, we're the ones that turn it on. If there's a speed control, we're the ones that tell it how fast to go. If there's a recipe that says we need this much of that and a different amount of something else, we provide all of that software that is directing the machinery how to make the product. And that's our core business. There's a lot of ancillary things to know about it, but that's at the heart of what we do. It's a great place to be doing work these days.
And it's a company with how many employees?
So we're currently just about 90 employees. I think when we did the seminar, we maybe were 65 or 70. So we've gone up quite a bit in that, whatever, year and a half since then.
I love it. And it's in the Midwest, right? It's in Kansas.
Yeah. So our headquarters is in a small town in Kansas. The town name is Sabetha, Kansas. It's about 2,600 people in population. We're about 100 miles from the nearest city, so 60 miles from Topeka, Kansas, which is the capital. We're right at 100 miles from the Kansas City Airport, 100 miles from Omaha. Yeah, right. We're as rural as you get.
I love it. Yeah, and the cool thing about this is, again, that's not Palantir's typical ideal client, which is why I think it's so special to see kind of the use cases and how you guys are working with them. So let's get started with the relationship with Palantir. When were you first introduced to the software, and what was the impetus to actually end up seeing if there was a use case there?
So prior to being introduced to Palantir, we've been looking at the AI for a number of years. It's clearly been a buzzword now for quite a long time. While we are on the front of technology and a lot of things, we did bide our time in the whole AI thing before we did anything. And one of our customers got really interested in doing some machine learning and using that to predict a certain outcome in the process. And it's a branch of the AI, more in the machine learning part, not in the LLMs or that kind of thing, but they were working on that. So we finally decided we were going to take a look at it, do something slightly different than them because they were already going down that path, and looked at the various use cases that we could come up with for the AI tool, and eventually settle on this notion of the knowledge base repository, looking at alarms, helping people run their systems in a more generic way. That led us to looking at a few things. And to be honest with you, I'd like to say I did this great amount of research and I checked 100 companies. The reality is a bit more simple than that. I did do some looking, but I found the AIP conference notification out there, and I go, hey, this is kind of interesting, and called them up, talked to them, told them who we were, what we did, and I don't know yet how we got in there, but we did get invited. We went out there, we got a lot of great attention. People paid, they were truly interested in what we were doing, and one thing led to another. During that conference, I learned a lot about the platform, what it can do, and basically I decided this was the people we wanted to partner with.
Right.
There were things, I know I mentioned this in our speech, but the core values thing did strike me as important. I know we're in the center of the country, they're in the left. There's probably a lot of things in the political spectrum we don't necessarily agree on, but the one thing that's pretty clear is we all love America. We love freedom. We like what that stands for. And it struck me as unusual to find a software company in California that was talking about those kind of values. And that mattered to me. And that made me we're a very relational kind of a company. Since we're doing work with a lot of smaller people individually, that relationship aspect of who we do business with is really, really important. Not that the technology doesn't matter, because it does, but I will take somebody with pretty good technology over the best technology if they are rational, honest, hardworking folks to deal with versus somebody who just wants to sell me something.
Yeah, and I think that's also really interesting because Carp speaks many times about how you guys aren't even considered customers to the company, you're considered partners. Obviously, you are customers, but the idea of actually having a partnership with your clients versus sucking as much money as you can out of them, do you think that's also something that gives a little bit of uniqueness to the relationship with Palantir?
Certainly, and I would tell you this, our whole experience with the Palantir folks from beginning to the end has been great. We got assigned a few key people. There's been some changes over the course of time, but our primary salesperson is still the same guy as David Goldstein for us. We've had a number of technical leads we've been involved with, but every single person that we've met has just been a gem of a person, took interest in us, listened to what we had to say. It's been a great experience.
Cool. So let's talk about the actual software then. What is I know you said one of your concerns was machine learning and AI and kind of incorporating that into a full-on system. Can you describe a little bit of the use cases that you're getting from using Foundry and AIP?
So to me, because I have followed a lot of the Palantir use cases as well. And I mean, at this point in time, I think I'm somewhat versed on the kinds of things they're going after. And our use case, I think, is pretty unique amongst the stuff that we're seeing from them, in that we're attempting to build a customer-facing software set of apps on top of the Palantir platform. We have not done much work on doing things internally, which I know we could. You go through this, you go, holy cow, we could do this internally to our own processes, but we're really focused on building a program that our customers can use and bringing that value to our clients, because that's ultimately what helps us be more successful in the marketplace. It's the customer facing aspect of all this. So yeah, that's been the big thing. And we've focused on a number of different things. We've had the knowledge base. Knowledge bases are not that new and unique. You can go out there and get knowledge bases, but we need that knowledge base engine to power our alarm analytics and those things that we want to do to figure out how to make the system run when it's not running.
Right.
So that's one of the elements that we have to have. And then tied into that is our service ticketing system, which is a bit of an ancillary piece for us to the whole thing. But there's been some unique discoveries along the way. What we've started off wanting to do is we've learned more about the platform, what it can do. Our target is somewhat morphed. Most recently, we've been using the knowledge base more standalone. So we work, about half of our business comes from OEMs. That is companies that build equipment. So while we provide the control system, the brains for what we're doing, about 50% of our customers are building the equipment, the extruders, the airlocks, the blower packages, the fans, all of that stuff. So they make that equipment. The other half of our business is coming from the end users, the pet food plant that's buying that equipment, buying the control system, and then producing a product, pet food, bread, PVC pipe, whatever their end product might be. So the use case that's evolving out of all this is we're trying to onboard now the OEMs to put up their information into our site, and then that information can become available to the end users so that they have validated, secure information that's accurate for their systems, as opposed to going out to the internet and asking the same question. They might get the right answer from a web-based chat, but they don't really know whether that answer is coming from something specific for their system. It might be like their system, so the answer is close, but close isn't good enough when it comes to telling somebody, hey, turn your system on, run it at this speed. Those have to be pretty precise answers, and you don't want to take a directional answer from the internet. And by tying in our OEM's knowledge base with the customer's processes, we can have a document of records, so to speak, be ported straight into the knowledge stream that the end users are trying to get. So as you know, one thing leads to another. That meant that what we constructed, or what we've got constructed now, we started with the security and the architecture that will allow us to platform multiple companies onto our stack. We can onboard those companies. They're essentially riding on the NorthWind Palantir stack. They have their own security segmented place for their knowledge base, and they control that. And then they decide what they share with us or what they share with our end users. And then that information is either used exclusively internally or ported back and forth amongst our user base. So compared to a typical application that you might get with Palantir, security is a lot different, because if you're just doing an inside the walls rollout of this product, you have to worry that top secret doesn't get to somebody that can't see that, but you don't have to worry about company A's information getting commingled with company B's information, as well as top secret versus confidential versus everybody can see it. So it's a more complex implementation. The other thing that I would tell you that's really different in our problem versus what the typical Palantir client might see is the use cases are vastly different in their value. When you go on and talk to the Palantir people, they're looking for somebody with a $2 million, a $5 million, $10 million problem.
Right.
Throw the software at it. They can spend $1 million on development, of $2 million on that. If the problem's large enough, you can put a lot of engineering effort into it. Our use case is one where we have $2 million for the problems, but they come in $3,000 increments. So whatever we do has got to be able to be generic enough that we can solve those $3,000 problems at a price point that Palantir is doing when they have a $2 million budget to work with. So that the scale and the generalization that we have to do compared to a customization, it's a lot different. And quite frankly, I think it's a much harder problem. I know when we first started talking to them, we told them what we wanted to do. They all said, oh, this will be easy. We can have this. And it was easy to get something pretty good. But the lift is pretty heavy to go all the way to a product that you can turn out there and feel confident when it says, hey, start the pump now. You know confidently that they can start that pump and it's not going to destroy their process, their plant, or get somebody hurt. The ante's a lot higher. The other thing that I think, this is my perspective, and I don't know how many of the Palantir people really recognize this, but along with all this technology we're doing, we're really developing a whole new market avenue, a new way for the Palantir products to get into the user base. So take your typical Palantir salesman. They go out, they talk to, I don't know, GE Aerospace is just, they're big. So They go, hey, we got something that you guys could use. They go get their use case. They end up with one client. It's got this much size. They're happy. In our case, we're trying to sign up 25, 30 OEMs, 30, 40, 50, 100 end users. So when success for us is going to have 100, 200 companies now touching the Palantir platform. So the chance for the land and expand as you go 6 months, a year, 2 years down the road to then add customizations to all these customers is pretty significant. And I mean, of course, we want to make money off of all this too. That's our goal. But I think there's a lot of how do I want to put this? The Palantir folks, some of them really recognize this, and I think some of them are going to be shocked as this grows out when they realize what kind of reach a small company like ours actually has in terms of spreading this product across the markets.
Yeah, and I also think that you're describing like an ecosystem of vendors and finding different applications and use cases and stuff, and that's what the network effects around Palantir, I think, are really exciting to see when they get into a company. There's all these downstream effects of how other companies can use essentially what you're describing, which is the ontology here. And that makes it really exciting to see any type of transformative results. I think everything you described is really cool, and it's showing kind of the trajectory of the relationship with Palantir. We're ending off in our last 5 minutes here. What results have you guys seen from the software, or even the promise of results? And how do you think those results will expand over the next 5 years working with Palantir?
Well, I was hoping we would be further in we would have more sales by this point in time. I should have probably known better. So, I mean, it's not perfect. All of that said, we've really had a lot of breakthroughs, I'd say, in the last 3 months. We have a big show coming up here in a few weeks called Pet Food Forum, and where we're going to be now releasing all of this stuff. So the answer to that question in terms of the commercial success is going to be answered, I'd say, in the next 4 or 5 months or 3 months in terms of the direction. In terms of the past year, we've actually had this product out there now for 6-8 months on several test sites, proving out that it works and all that. I mean, the feedback has been great. We had a meeting with a client this morning. It's a pretty new client. They're an OEM, and the light bulb really went off on them, and they're just using the document resource of it. So they put like a project in there, all their project documentation that's got specialized things. Now when anybody goes to that job site, they have a question about that particular project, like how do I get into the past security? Where do we drop off products at the dock? How do I start up this particular piece of equipment? All of that stuff is encapsulated in that product system, product folder, job folder, and they can use that to basically get new people into that and answer questions that typically only the project manager might know. So that is leading one thing to another, and they've been quite happy with the result of all that. The comment they made this morning is we've tried to stump the system, and so far we haven't been able to do that. I've lost you, Amit.
Sorry, just was muted for a second. It's really interesting because the more and more you get into the relationship with Palantir, it seems like the use cases can multiply and expand on top of each other. And so although the sales haven't ramped up yet, I would imagine you're hopeful that can eventually create that ramp up in sales.
We are, and I think if there was a disconnect between us and the Palantir people at the beginning, and they were just certain that we would show this and they would be buying stuff. I've worked in this industry for my whole career now. Towards the end of my career, and nothing happens that fast. We could have had this application walk on water, and it's just not adopted at the kind of speed that I'll call it that the YouTube generation is expecting, where you go show it and they go buy all this stuff. People will look at it and they'll walk around the car. So, something that when we get traction in a year after all this in our space, that's actually pretty fast.
Right. All right. That was great stuff. Mike Bosworth, the CEO and founder of NorthWind. Thank you so much for taking the time. Last question for you, I guess. Do you think the future of NorthWind has to be AI driven, or is there a world in which NorthWind can survive even if you guys don't adopt some of the mainstream technologies?
I don't think anybody's going to survive without utilizing some element of AI in their business. This is partly why we've made such a big investment. And again, for us, it's been we've spent a lot of our available investment cash on this because we think it's the only way we're going to survive. And certainly companies our size, we want to compete with people with 1,000 employees, and this is how we will do it.
I love it. Absolutely. And then, you know, that really is the story I've heard many times from Palantir clients, which is like, hey, this software can be our kind of tactical weapon against these companies that are much bigger than us. But that's the reason you make the investment at the end of the day into Palantir.
One thing we didn't cover, Amit, I mean, this really fit with our business because we've had a history of doing automation in our space. I mean, we aren't going to have time for this in this interview, but if you were to visit our shop, you would see that we've already invested heavily in our process automation, whether that be how we generate drawings, to how we build the panels, to how we build our software. Long before the AI and the Palantir came around, we were already well down this road of automating our business processes. The AI thing has just opened up a lot of additional tools to make that happen both faster and achieve a whole higher level of result.
Yeah, and I think that's important because it's like you guys were already tinkering with the idea of incorporating AI. Palantir just kind of expedited the process of it. I love it. Mike Bosworth, CEO and founder of NorthWind. Thank you so much. If anyone wants to check them out, I will have the link to their website in the description. And hopefully we will talk soon in the future.
Thanks. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mike.